The breaking point. The crystalline spires of New Alexandria gleamed under the triple moons of Meridian Prime, their surfaces reflecting the somber gathering below. High Admiral Vexthor of the Meridian Alliance stood at the execution platform, his iridescent scales rippling with anticipation. Before him, Commander Elena Chen of the Earth Defense Force knelt in chains, her posture defiant despite the gravity restraints pressing down on her shoulders. Commander Elena Chen, Vexthor's voice boomed across the Plaza of Justice. You have been found guilty of espionage against the Meridian Alliance. The sentence is death. Do you have any final words? Elena raised her head, dark eyes reflecting the starlight above. The corners of her mouth turned up in what could have been a smile or a grimace. You should have killed us all 60 years ago, when you had the chance. Confused murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd of alien dignitaries. Vexthor's secondary heart quickened its pace. Something in her tone made his warrior instincts scream danger. Proceed with the execution, he ordered, pushing aside his unease. The quantum dissolution field hummed to life, its purple energy crawling across Elena's form. In her final moment, she laughed, a sound that would haunt Vexthor's dreams for the rest of his life. The field collapsed in on itself, and Commander Chen was no more. 12 hours later, everything changed. The first sign came from the outer colonies. Quantum communication relays went dark one by one, creating a wave of silence that swept across Alliance space. Then came the reports, massive fleets appearing from nowhere, utilizing technology that shouldn't exist. In the Alliance High Command Center, Vexthor stared at the tactical displays in horror. Impossible, he whispered. Their fleet was destroyed 60 years ago. We made sure of it. His aide, a young Meridian named Kashra, rushed into the chamber. High Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing a face Vexthor had last seen in historical archives. Admiral Sarah Chen, Elena's grandmother, who had supposedly died in the Great Purge 60 years ago. She looked exactly the same. Greetings, Meridian Alliance, she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades. 60 years ago, you attempted to eliminate humanity as a potential threat to your dominion. You failed. While you celebrated your victory, we went underground. We evolved. We prepared. The tactical display updated, showing thousands of human ships emerging from what appeared to be empty space. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the Alliance couldn't even comprehend. You executed my granddaughter today, claiming she was a spy. Sarah continued. You were right, but you never understood what she was spying for. Elena's death was the signal we've been waiting for. Proof that despite 6 decades of peaceful coexistence, you haven't changed. Vexthor's scales had turned pale. Scramble all fleets. Raise the planetary shields. But it was too late. Across Alliance space, carefully positioned human agents were already acting. Shield generators failed. Weapon systems went offline. 60 years of infiltration were bearing fruit. This isn't just revenge, Sarah's voice continued. This is justice. This is humanity showing you exactly what we're capable of when we're pushed too far. You should have killed us all 60 years ago. Now, you'll wish you had. The transmission cut off, leaving only static and the sound of Vexthor's racing hearts. In the distance, the first explosions began to light up the night sky of Meridian Prime, turning the crystalline spires into towers of fire. Shadows of deception. The Meridian High Council chamber was in chaos. Emergency lights cast crimson shadows across the faces of panicked council members as reports of devastation poured in from across Alliance space. High Counselor Zaravine, her crystalline exoskeleton dulled with stress, activated the central holographic display. The human fleet has already captured 3 major shipyards in the Outer Rim, she announced, her voice trembling. But that's not the worst of it. Our own defense systems are turning against us. Somehow, they've compromised everything. Security Chief Malkor stepped forward, his usually immaculate combat carapace scarred from recent fighting. "It's worse than that," he said, interfacing with the display. "We've discovered that humans have been altering our historical records for decades. The purge 60 years ago, it wasn't what we thought it was." The display showed footage from the ancient archives, recently recovered from quantum backup storage that had been thought lost. The images shocked the Council into silence. The human fleet hadn't been destroyed in the Great Purge. They had disappeared, using technology that made them invisible not just to sensors, but to the naked eye. "They let us think we won," Malkor continued. "While we celebrated our victory, they were infiltrating every level of our society. Commander Chen's execution triggered sleeper agents we never knew existed." A junior analyst burst into the chamber, breaking all protocols of Council etiquette. "Chief, we've decoded part of the human communication network. You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing a message dated 50 years ago. Phase 1 complete. Educational systems compromised. Proceeding with cultural integration. Another message from 40 years ago. Phase 2 successful. Military database backdoors established. Beginning hardware modifications. 30 years ago. Phase 3 initiated. Quantum fold technology successfully masked from Alliance detection. Ghost fleet assembly proceeding ahead of schedule. By the first light, Zaravine whispered. They'd been playing us for fools. The display suddenly flickered, showing a new message, live and untraceable. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood hundreds of humans, all wearing Alliance military uniforms. "I see you've begun to understand," she said, smiling. "Look around your council chamber. How many of your trusted advisors are actually human?" Panic erupted as council members began staring at each other in suspicion. Malkor drew his weapon, but he was too late. 3 council members shed their holographic disguises, revealing human operatives beneath. Before anyone could react, they had accessed the chamber's central controls. "Did you really think we'd only planted one spy?" Sarah asked. "Elena was just the trigger. The knife was already at your throat." Zaravine watched in horror as the chamber's defense systems turned inward. "How?" she demanded. "How did you hide for so long?" "You gave us the tools ourselves," Sarah replied. "Your species is so proud of your quantum technology, your holographic masking systems. Did you never wonder why humans seem so interested in working on your research projects? Why we eagerly adopted your tech?" The pieces finally fell into place in Malkor's mind. "You weren't adopting our technology," he said. "You were modifying it, improving it, using it against us." "Finally, someone understands." Sarah nodded. "Your arrogance was your weakness. You thought you were teaching primitive humans about advanced technology. In reality, we were learning your weaknesses, finding the flaws in your systems, and preparing for this moment." Outside the council chamber, the sound of fighting grew closer. Human agents, hidden for decades within the Alliance military, were systematically taking control of key installations. "Your people tried to commit genocide against us 60 years ago," Sarah continued. "But instead of destroying us, you gave us a gift, the motivation to become stronger than you could imagine. Elena's death was the final test. You proved that despite 6 decades of peaceful coexistence, you still saw humans as a threat to be eliminated." "What do you want?" Zaravine asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Want?" Sarah's smile faded. "We don't want anything from you. This isn't a negotiation or a demand for surrender. This is humanity showing you exactly what happens when you underestimate us." Elena knew her role. Her death was just the key turning in the lock. The transmission cut off as the chamber's lights failed completely. In the darkness, Malkor could hear the sound of hidden doors opening, of weapons being primed. Humanity's agents, hidden in plain sight for 60 years, were finally revealing themselves. The revenge that had been 60 years in the making wasn't just about military might. It was about showing the Alliance that they had never been in control. Their supposed dominion over humanity had been an illusion, carefully maintained until the perfect moment to shatter it. As security forces loyal to the Council prepared for their last stand, Malkor couldn't help but appreciate the elegance of the human plan. They hadn't just built a hidden fleet, they had constructed an entire shadow civilization within Alliance space, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The price of pride. The Meridian Alliance's greatest military fortress, Station Impenetrable, lived up to its name for exactly 6 minutes after the human attack began. Fleet Commander Dexthal watched in horror as centuries of defensive engineering crumbled before his eyes. Human ships simply appeared inside the station's supposedly impregnable shields, their quantum drives operating on principles that defied Alliance understanding. Status report. He barked, even as emergency klaxons blared throughout the command center. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Kiravan, looked up from her display with fear in all 4 of her eyes. "Sir, they're not just attacking. They're systematically dismantling our defenses. It's as if they know every weakness, every backup system, every contingency we've ever planned." "Because we built those contingencies together," a voice said from behind them. Both officers spun to find Captain Maya Rodriguez standing at her station, her Alliance holographic disguise melting away. After 15 years of serving together, Dexthal was seeing his second-in-command's true face for the first time. Before anyone could react, she had already transmitted the station's complete command codes to the human fleet. The mighty fortress, pride of the Alliance military, fell without a single shot being fired. Across Alliance space, the pattern repeated itself. Humanity's agents, embedded deep within military and civilian infrastructure, executed their orders with terrifying precision. Ships appeared from nowhere, striking at targets that had been classified for centuries. Hidden weapons activated in the heart of secure installations. Communication networks collapsed as carefully planted backdoors opened. In the Alliance capital's strategic command bunker, Supreme General Ixthor watched the reports flood in with growing despair. "How did we not see this coming?" he demanded of his staff. "How did they hide so much for so long?" Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on his private command screen, a channel that should have been impossible to breach. "You saw exactly what we wanted you to see," she said. "Your people's greatest weakness isn't your technology or your military strategy. It's your unshakable belief in your own superiority." Ixthor's scales flickered with rage. "You've murdered thousands today. Is this your revenge? Slaughtering civilians? Check your casualty reports again." Sarah replied calmly. "You'll find that civilian casualties are practically zero. We're not here for genocide, General. We're here to dismantle the system that thought it could casually execute my granddaughter." She was right, Ixthor realized with growing unease. The human attacks were precisely targeted, taking out military and government installations, while leaving civilian infrastructure largely untouched. This wasn't random violence, it was surgery. "Your civilization tried to exterminate us 60 years ago," Sarah continued. "Instead of fighting back immediately, we chose to wait, to learn, to understand not just your technology, but your psychology, your cultures, your fears. We became the perfect infiltrators because we took the time to truly know you." On a distant mining colony, Governor Zelnar watched in amazement as human forces systematically disabled their defenses, then proceeded to evacuate civilians from areas about to be affected by the fighting. Their efficiency was terrifying. They knew exactly where every shelter was, every evacuation route, every emergency protocol. "You don't understand." Sarah's voice echoed across all Alliance frequencies. "We could have destroyed you years ago, but this isn't about destruction. This is about teaching you the lesson you failed to learn 60 years ago. Humanity will not be underestimated again." In the Outer Rim, Alliance Admiral Vexthor, one of the few who had witnessed Elena Chen's execution, received a private transmission. It showed footage from 60 years ago, revealing the truth about the Great Purge. The Alliance hadn't driven humanity into hiding. Humanity had chosen to disappear, using the Alliance's attack as cover for their true plans. The execution of Elena Chen wasn't just about one life. The message read, "It was proof that despite 60 years of living among you, learning from you, even helping you advance your own technology, you still saw us as something to be feared and controlled. You proved that coexistence was impossible, not because of our actions, but because of your inability to see us as equals." As Alliance military installations continued to fall, a pattern emerged. The humans weren't just winning. They were systematically dismantling the entire power structure of the Alliance. Every hidden weapon cache, every secret research facility, every classified protocol was exposed and neutralized. In the ruins of the High Council chamber, Malcor found a message carved into his personal command console. "The price of pride is understanding how far you had to fall." The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had spent 60 years weaving themselves into the very fabric of Alliance society, becoming an invisible cancer that could kill its host at any moment. The execution of Elena Chen hadn't started this war. It had simply signaled that the time for hiding was over. As the third day of the conflict drew to a close, the true horror of humanity's revenge became clear. They weren't interested in destroying the Alliance. They wanted to humble it, to dismantle it piece by piece, to make its leaders watch as 60 years of carefully laid plans reduced their empire to ashes. The price of pride was being paid in full, and the cost was beyond anything the Alliance had imagined. The Emergency Council chamber was barely large enough for the 12 people who would decide humanity's future. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the aftermath of the Alliance's attempted purge. "They think they've won," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "They believe their attack forced us to retreat to our solar system. In reality, they've given us an opportunity we never had before." Dr. James Martinez, head of quantum physics research, stepped forward. "Project Ghost is ready," he announced. "The prototype ships can maintain complete invisibility indefinitely. The Alliance won't just be unable to detect them, they won't even know such technology exists." "And the infiltration protocols?" Sarah asked. Dr. Emily Wong, chief of xenobiology, activated her own display. "We can modify human biology enough to pass as various Alliance species. The holographic overlays will handle the rest. We can hide in plain sight." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just planning a military response. They were proposing to hide an entire civilization in plain sight. 50 years earlier, Alliance capital. Dr. Martinez, now appearing as a Meridian scientist named Kelethor, uploaded the modified quantum theories to the Alliance database. The flaws he had carefully embedded in their scientific understanding would ensure they never discovered the true capabilities of human technology. In another part of the city, Dr. Wong, disguised as a medical researcher, subtly altered xenobiological databases to ensure human infiltrators would never be detected by standard medical scans. 40 years earlier, Alliance Military Academy. Sarah Chen watched from her hidden command center as the first generation of human infiltrators graduated from Alliance military academies. They had grown up learning both human and Alliance cultures, prepared since birth for their roles. "The long game continues," she wrote in her encrypted journal. "Elena has started her training. My granddaughter will play a crucial role in what's to come." 30 years earlier, Ghost Fleet Assembly Point. In a region of space that Alliance sensors showed as empty, thousands of human ships gathered. Their quantum drives, operating on principles the Alliance couldn't comprehend, allowed them to exist in a state of partial phase, present yet unseeable. Sarah walked through the fleet in its hidden dock, marveling at how far they'd come. "We could strike now," her second-in-command suggested. "No," she replied. "We need to be certain. We need to give them every chance to prove they've changed. And if they haven't..." She left the thought unfinished. 20 years earlier, Alliance Research Facility. Elena Chen, now a promising young scientist in her Alliance disguise, carefully introduced subtle modifications to Alliance defense systems. Each change was too small to notice, but together they created fatal flaws that could be exploited when the time came. Remember, Sarah's message to all operatives read, "We're not just planning revenge. We're ensuring this can never happen again." 10 years earlier, Human Hidden Command. Sarah reviewed the reports from across Alliance space. Human agents had reached positions of influence in every sector of Alliance society. The Ghost Fleet had grown beyond their wildest expectations. Their quantum technology had advanced decades beyond what the Alliance thought possible. "Are we ready?" Elena asked during their secure communication. "Almost," Sarah replied. "We still need to know if they've changed, if there's any hope for peaceful coexistence." 5 years earlier, Alliance High Command. Elena Chen, now a commander in the Alliance fleet, submitted her report on human activities in the Outer Rim. She knew it contained just enough truth to be believed, just enough lies to serve their purpose. The Alliance's response would help determine if 60 years of preparation would end in peace or vengeance. Present day, Ghost Fleet Command. Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, watching as decades of planning came to fruition. The Alliance had proven themselves unchanged, executing Elena despite evidence of her innocence. They had chosen pride over justice, fear over understanding. "My granddaughter knew the risks," she wrote in her final journal entry. Her death was not in vain. It showed us that despite 60 years of living among them, helping them, becoming part of their society, they still see us as a threat to be eliminated. Elena's execution wasn't just a tragedy. It was confirmation that our long wait was necessary. Across Alliance space, hidden human agents received their final activation codes. Quantum drives powered up, bringing ghost ships into phase with normal space. Backdoors in Alliance systems opened. 60 years of preparation became action. The humans who had hidden among the Alliance for decades shed their disguises. Children of the long game, born and raised to serve this purpose, stepped forward to fulfill their roles. The Ghost Fleet, larger than any force the Alliance had ever imagined, emerged from its quantum shroud. "We gave them 60 years to change," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. 60 years to learn that cooperation is better than domination. Instead, they proved that some lessons can only be taught through defeat. The revenge 6 decades in the making wasn't just about military victory. It was about showing the Alliance that their greatest defeat had come from within, from the people they had tried to destroy, but instead had forced into becoming the perfect infiltrators. The price of their pride would be paid not just in military losses, but in the understanding of how completely they had been deceived. For 60 years, humans had been the ghost in their machine, the shadow in their light, waiting for the moment when a single death would signal that the time for hiding was finally over. The Alliance capital world of Meridian Prime hung in space like a jewel about to shatter. Its once impenetrable planetary shields flickered and died as hidden quantum transmitters, planted decades ago, finally activated. In high orbit, the Ghost Fleet materialized from its quantum shroud, thousands of ships appearing like stars suddenly born from darkness. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Remembrance, watching as 60 years of preparation reached its culmination. The holoscreen before her showed multiple feeds, Alliance forces in disarray, human agents emerging from deep cover, and the face of Supreme Chancellor Vexthor as he realized the true extent of his civilization's defeat. "You've won." Vexthor's voice carried defeat in every syllable. "Your victory is total. Name your terms." Sarah's laugh held no humor. "Terms? You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. This is education." On the planet below, hidden quantum devices began transmitting data across all Alliance networks. 60 years of secret recordings, documented atrocities, classified plans for future human suppression. Everything the Alliance had tried to hide was laid bare for their own people to see. "Your people need to understand why this happened," Sarah continued. "Why we spent 60 years preparing instead of just destroying you when we developed the technology to do so. Elena's execution wasn't just about one life. It was proof that your civilization's fundamental beliefs hadn't changed. In the Alliance High Council chamber, now under human control, Malkor watched in stunned silence as the truth of the past 60 years unfolded on every screen. The humans hadn't just infiltrated their society. They had become its secret architects, subtly guiding technological development, cultural evolution, even military doctrine. Did you never wonder, Sarah's voice echoed through every communication device on the planet, why your quantum technology developed along such specific paths? Why certain theoretical advances seemed to come just when you needed them? Your greatest achievements of the past 60 years were breadcrumbs we left for you to follow. The Ghost Fleet began its final maneuver, its ships moving in perfect synchronization to surround the capital. But instead of opening fire, they activated their quantum generators in a way the Alliance had never seen before. Reality itself seemed to ripple as space folded around the planet. "This is what we could have taught you," Sarah continued, "if you had chosen cooperation over domination. Your scientists thought they understood quantum mechanics. What they knew was only what we allowed them to discover." In orbit, the quantum fold continued to expand. Alliance sensors couldn't penetrate it, couldn't even comprehend what they were seeing. For the first time, they witnessed the true extent of human technological advancement and understood how completely they had been surpassed. Your civilization tried to commit genocide because you feared we would one day surpass you. Sarah's voice carried the weight of 60 years of waiting. In doing so, you forced us to become exactly what you feared, but not in the way you imagined. The quantum fold stabilized, creating a barrier that no Alliance technology could penetrate. Meridian Prime was effectively isolated from the rest of the galaxy, but rather than panic, the planet's population watched in fascination as their skies filled with new stars, reflections of actual space through quantum windows that shouldn't have been possible. "This is your lesson," Sarah announced. "Not destruction, but understanding. Your capital will remain in this quantum fold for as long as it takes your people to learn what we learned 60 years ago. That survival depends on cooperation, not domination." In the High Council chamber, a final message appeared before the stunned Alliance leaders. "The greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's forcing them to face the truth about themselves." The Ghost Fleet maintained its position, its quantum technology rewriting everything the Alliance thought they knew about physics. Human agents, their roles in the Great Deception finally complete, began sharing their true knowledge with their former enemies. The revenge 60 years in the making wasn't about destruction, it was about transformation. Belena knew her role in this. Sarah's final broadcast reached every corner of Alliance space. "My granddaughter died to prove that you hadn't changed. But her death will mean something more. It will be the catalyst that forces you to change." As the dawn broke over Meridian Prime, its light distorted by the quantum fold into impossible colors, the Alliance civilization faced a truth they had spent 60 years avoiding. Their greatest defeat had come not from human weapons, but from human patience. They had feared humanity's potential for violence, never imagining that their true power lay in their capacity for long-term planning and their willingness to sacrifice everything for justice. The revenge was complete, but its true impact was just beginning. The Alliance would survive, but it would never be the same. The ghost in their machine had finally revealed itself, and the dawn of a new era had arrived, not through destruction, but through the most thorough and patient revolution in galactic history. In her private quarters, Sarah looked at the hologram of Elena one last time. "It's done, little one," she whispered. "Your sacrifice showed them what they were. Now, they'll learn what they can become." The quantum fold shimmered in space, a visible reminder that the greatest victories don't always come from the battles we fight, but from the truths we force others to face. The Ghost Fleet remained in orbit, silent sentinels watching over the dawn of a new age, one born from 60 years of patience, planning, and the unshakable human spirit of determination.